I'm Harold Carver, and with the help of artificial intelligence, we bring this story to life for you. Witness the sudden fall of empires in the Bronze Age collapse, the full tale revealed in my book. Imagine a single clay tablet, sealed under the rubble of a burning palace in 1185 BC, still containing the desperate final plea of a king named Amurapi. He is writing to a foreign ally begging for ships, warning that cities are collapsing around him, yet no help comes. This is not a myth, it is the stark, immediate reality of the late Bronze Age collapse. A moment frozen in time, when the most sophisticated civilization the world had ever known. For 3,000 years, this silence has haunted historians. But a sudden, violent unmaking of a global system that functioned for half a millennium. The shock of 1200 BC was not merely the fall of a city, where Mycenae, Hattusa, and Thebes vanished from the map in a generation, leaving behind only ash and the haunting question of how such power could evaporate so completely. Between 1200 and 1150 BC, the Eastern Mediterranean did not just chain. The complex web of states that had traded in copper and tin, exchanged royal gifts, and built monumental palaces disintegrated with a speed that still baffles the modern mind. This was not the gradual erosion of power seen in the later Roman Empire of Greece, the Hittite Empire of Anatolia, and the Canaanite city-states simultaneously. While Egypt survived, it was reduced to a diminished regional power, stripped of its foreign empire and reeling from internal strife. The archaeological record reveals a landscape of burning cities, abandoned settlements, marking a sharp discontinuity that separates the cosmopolitanism of the late Bronze Age from the relative isolation of the subsequent Greek Dark Ages. To understand this rupture is to grapple with the terrifying mechanics of how civilization together are disturbed. The central mystery of this era lies in the sheer fragility of a world system that had appeared invincible. For centuries, these great powers had maintained a Pax Danubiana of economic survival. The famous Amarna letters reveal a world where royal marriages were cemented across thousands of miles and the movement of chariot horses was treated with bureaucratic precision. Yet this very interconnectedness, which had been the system's greatest strength, became its fatal weakness. When the mechanisms that created the civilization's strength became the vectors of its destruction, invasion could explain. The question is not just who burned the cities, but how the delicate web of diplomacy and trade snapped so completely that the great capitals were abandoned to the grazing sheep of nomadic marauders within a single generation. To understand the magnitude of the collapse, we must first examine the Mycenaean world. Flourishing across the Greek mainland in the 14th and 13th centuries BC, these were not scattered tribes, but highly stratified, centrally administered palatial states. The physical remains of Mycenae, Pylos, and Tiryns stand as monolithic testaments to a society of the one-axe and the bureaucratic precision of his scribes. Yet, as the archaeological record reveals, this mastery was also a source of profound vulnerability. The very structures that projected power became targets of destruction. Once severed, offered no redundancy to buffer the shock. The heart of the Mycenaean state was the palace itself, fortress and administrative engine. North of the Aegean, the Hittite Empire stood as a remarkable achievement of statecraft, challenging Egypt. Centered on the vast fortified capital of Hattusa, this empire governed a complex, multi-ethnic domain stretching from the Taurus Mountains to the Black Sea. Unlike the predictable riverine civilizations of Egypt, the sheer scale of Hattusa, with its massive walls and labyrinthine tunnels, understanding the fragility of its existence, even as it projected invincibility. The empire's administrative machinery, reconstructed from tens of thousands of clay tablets, reveals a sophisticated system of law and diplomacy that was arguably the most advanced in the ancient world. Yet this complexity, this intricate web of vassal kingdoms and treaty obligations, became the trap that swallowed the empire when the central authority began to fracture. While the Mycenaean palaces burned and Hattusa fell to silence, The new kingdom did not vanish in smoke like Tyrians. Instead, Egypt survived the catastrophe that defined the end of the era, the last great survivor of a geopolitical world system that had fractured beyond recognition. Yet, this survival was deceptive, a kind of political breathing that masked a terminal metabolic collapse. The new kingdom entered its twilight not with a sudden bang, but with a slow, agonizing hemorrhage of authority, resources, and legitimacy. The state did not so much fall as it disintegrated from the inside out, but manifested through a more gradual decay of the bureaucracy rather than sudden military destruction. The image of Egypt in the late 12th century BC is one of immense resilience coupled with profound vulnerability, maintaining the shell of imperial grandeur. If the collapse were a symphony of falling empires, dissonant measure, documenting the silence falling over the eastern Mediterranean with unmatched specificity, situated on the headland of Ras Shamra, the new kingdom of Egypt, and the island of Elashia. Its destruction around 1125 BC provides the most intimate textual and archaeological record of the collapse in progress. The excavation unearthed not only the remains of temples and palaces, preserving the last correspondence of a dying world. Through these tablets, we hear the voice of the last king, Amurapi, while his own cities burn and his vassal. This immediacy of documentation creates a snapshot of a system that had lost its capacity to function. To truly grasp the scale of the catastrophe, one must look to the island of Cyprus. If the eastern Mediterranean was a complex clockwork of trade, the linchpin without which the entire mechanism would grind to a halt, the island's role was singular and non-negotiable in the supply of copper, whose name in Latin literally translates to metal of Cyprus, but a catastrophic unraveling of the social and economic fabric that had sustained the island for centuries. When the Mycenaean palaces fell and the Hittite Empire disintegrated, severing the trade arteries that the relationship between Cyprus and the Mycenaean world was one of profound intimacy. The fall of the Hittites embodies the sheer immensity of what was lost in this era. For centuries, Hattusa stood as a linchpin in the diplomatic and military network when the imperial archive was abandoned, leaving behind thousands of clay tablets in a state of sudden preservation. It marked the moment the written world of the late Bronze Age ceased to breathe in the north. The silence that followed was absolute. The disintegration was systemic, a cascading failure of the imperial machinery that had become dependent on central control and the constant projection of force against a hostile periphery. The primary agent of this northern pressure was a complex mix of internal rot and external migration. The Hittite Empire was a system of interdependence, relying on Egypt for gold, on the Levant for tin, and on the Aegean for trade goods. The destruction of the Mycenaean palaces is the most iconic visual marker of the late Bronze Age collapse, a sudden darkness that swallowed a world of light and script. Standing atop the Acropolis of Mycenae, one would have beheld a world defined by the visibility of power, yet, by the final decades of the second millennium BC, defies simple explanation. The evidence points instead to a complex interplay of internal decay, external pressure, to shifting tides of climate and conflict. In the Peloponnese, the collapse was not a singular event, but a process unfolding over several generations, punctuated by violent terminations at key nodes like Pylos and Thebes. The most poignant witness to this final act comes from the site of where the palace of Nestor was unearthed, revealing the abrupt end. To stand on the Tel of Ras Shamra today is to touch the physical remnants of one of the most vital nodes in the ancient world system. Here lies the buried capital of Ugarit, a polity that occupies a singular place in the historiography of the collapse. It was not merely another ruin, it was the crossroads where the great powers of the Near East intersected. A free port and cosmopolitan hub. Unlike the gradual decline of Egypt or the fragmented disintegration of Mycenaean palaces, it ceased to function as a political entity within a generation, and its libraries were buried beneath the ashes of a fire that burned the city's heartwood to dust. The complete and violent destruction of this thriving city demonstrates the sudden inability of local and imperial powers to protect their heartlands. The city did not simply fade into obscurity. We can reconstruct the final hours of the Bronze Age world system with a specificity rare in the global economy of the second millennium BC, indispensable supplier of the metal that gave its name to the age. Without the copper of Wallachia, the bronze weaponry, ceremonial vessels, and architectural fittings of the entire eastern Mediterranean would have stood still. The collapse of this system was not a peripheral event, it was the severing of an artery, a shockwave that propagated instantaneously through the interconnected web of the late Bronze Age. The island's urban centers, such as Encombe and Kalavassos, Aeos, Dimitrios, flourished as cosmopolitan hubs, their harbors crowded with shipping from Mycenae, Canaan, and Egypt. These were integrated components of a hyper-specialized production system. Greek mainland. The removal of this single critical resource node precipitated the disintegration of an entire civilization complex, proving that the strength of the system was also its greatest vulnerability. The end of the Bronze Age was not a singular event, but a convergence of failures, a perfect storm of interacting factors, where the stability of the whole rested precariously on the continued efficiency of its parts. As we stand among the ruins of Hattusa and the dust of Mycenae, reflecting the precarious nature of civilization itself, the collapse was not an inevitability. It was a systemic failure that can be understood, modeled, and perhaps avoided in our own complex world. The full case, the detailed evidence, and Harold Carver's unique conclusion on why this world system failed are laid out in his book, Bronze Age Collapse: How a World System Failed by Harold Carver, available now on Amazon. The link is in the description. Discover the specific factors that turned a golden age into a dark age, and learn the lessons of a civilization that unraveled from the inside out. If this gripped you, the complete story, the full evidence, and Harold Carver's own conclusions is laid out in his book on the Bronze Age Collapse: How a World System Failed, linked right below this video. Subscribe now. Every week, we reopen a mystery that history left unsolved. Thank you for watching. Get The Bronze Age Collapse: How a World System Failed by Harold Carver on Amazon. The link is in the description. And subscribe for a new investigation every week.